What is this? Poison what?
All right. Well, hold on. Let me.
Dart frogs, huh?
Yes. Okay. So hold on. Let me just fix this really quick. Sorry.
Oh, they have those metal statues out of these guys.
Okay. Anyways, give us a second. All right. Hello and welcome to Just Animals podcast. I'm Elle, and with me, as always, is my dad, aka Guy.
Hi, we're here just in time.
Yes, and today joining us, we have two special guests actually. One, we have Scott from True Exact on the show with us today.
Hi, how are you guys doing? I'm excited to learn about this animal.
Your tone of voice says otherwise, but that's okay.
I'm trying to be silent right now.
We will not harm you.
Right, yeah. And then with us, our exciting special animal guest expert, we have Dr. Cori Richards-Zawacki, all the way from Pittsburgh, University of Pittsburgh, right? Yes, from the University of Pittsburgh as our special guest today. Dr. Cori, if you want to just give yourself a little brief intro, who you are and what you do, and we'll get into it.
Sure, yeah. I am a professor in the Department of Biological Sciences at the University of Pittsburgh, and I'm also the director of that university's biological field station, which is where I happen to be at the moment. I study amphibians, their ecology, their evolution, their conservation, and a lot of my research happens in Panama, which I'll talk about throughout the podcast, and some of it happens in different parts of the eastern United States.
That's so cool. So yeah, give us a little bit. How does someone find themselves in the amphibian world? Just really quick before we get into the poison dart frog. We love to ask that, like whether it's hyenas, poison dart, amphibians, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if there is a general path, but my path is definitely not a straight one. I was an engineering major in college. And I liked it in the classroom, but didn't like it outside the classroom. And I didn't know you could do this for a living until way later. So I just switched careers and ended up with frogs. But yeah, I think I was like kind of addicted to National Geographics and that sort of thing. And I just didn't realize you could do that, for a living.
Right. Very cool. Yeah, we're big Nat Geo fans over here too. So is there a specific poison dart frog that you studied in Panama? And then what led you to Panama? And then if there's a specific frog, what about that specific frog?
I have a more fundamental question.
Okay, Jesus.
Let's start with amphibian. From my understanding.
Okay.
And
he's not a creationist. Okay, we'll just preface
From
that.
my understanding, an amphibian can breathe air or breathe through water like a fish. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, so they most of them have lungs and so can breathe like us. I say most because there's a whole lineage of salamanders that does not even have lungs, but they also breathe through their skin. And so, yes, getting oxygen through their skin, whether they're getting it from the air or from the water, is one important thing they do. Yes.
So are you telling me that an amphibian, in essence, has some type of an electrolysis where they're breaking the water down into a hydrogen and oxygen?
Nerd.
Not exactly like that, no.
Okay.
But yeah, they do have very permeable skin.
So how do they extract the oxygen from the water?
That's a good question. Well, it just sort of diffuses across ion channels within the skin is my guess.
You just blew our minds. Time out. You just blew our minds with. We're gonna have to go. You're gonna have to come back and talk about the salamanders without lungs, just so you're aware.
I will preface you if that is not my area of expertise.
Okay. Well, you'll give us the salamander with lungs without lungs expert. So this breathing mechanism automatically flips depending on if they're
terrestrial,
on land or in the water. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely not using their lungs when they're underwater, but they can be breathing both through their skin and with their lungs when they're out of the water. So it's not like a one or the other kind of thing.
Okay.
Really?
When they're in the water, is there similar efficiencies, or are they limited to the amount of time underwater that they can spend, or they could just keep extracting oxygen unlimited amount and just stay underwater?
Well, some of them can stay underwater for a very long time. So for example, here in Pennsylvania, where I live and work, we have amphibians that hibernate in the water in the ponds over winter. So they're there under the ice all winter long. So yeah, long time under the water is okay.
Wow. And
Cool.
wait, is that I don't know if I'm saying it right. Is that torpor? Is that what it's called? Is that what they're doing?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the definitions between torpor and other types, but yeah, I mean, it's generally like a slowing down of all your body functions during a time when the environment is harsh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, back to back to how you ended up in Panama and the Panama poison dart frog, if that's what it's called.
Oh, wow. Panama.
Yes. So I ended up in Panama actually for my PhD research, and I was studying a very brightly colored, amazing frog called the Panamanian golden frog, which is technically not a poison dart frog, although you might think it was one just based on its colors.
Sure.
Yeah. So then later on, I moved to studying an actual poison dart frog, which is called the strawberry poison dart frog, which is found in Nicaragua and Panama and Costa Rica along the Caribbean coasts of those countries.
Wow. Okay. Strawberry. I mean, it sounds like something so sweet. Oh, a strawberry frog. Like it doesn't sound like this can kill you. So what's their scientific name for this strawberry poison dart frog?
The scientific name is Ophaga pumilio.
What does that even mean?
Ophaga familiar?
Well, the genus name Ophaga is a really cool word because it means egg eater.
Oh, really? Whoa.
So that gives you a clue about a really interesting part of their life cycle, which is that the moms actually feed their tadpoles their own unfertilized eggs. So without the mom feeding her unfertilized eggs to the tadpoles would not survive. So that's why they're like an egg feeder. Yeah.
Aren't they really good parents too?
Yeah,
That's what I liked about the poison dart frog. I read they were good parents.
Yeah, because if you're a bad kid, what do you think you're going to get from a poison dart frog mom? She's going to send a dart frog at you. And my mom has kicked my ass and beat me with a strap, you know. Okay, so Dr. Cori, I don't know why I have this.
Please don't read her the Wikipedia page. Please don't do that.
And the knowledge base, let me talk. That poison was associated with red in animals. And I guess I'm wrong because these dart frogs are all different colors. So where did I get this from?
What?
You're not wrong.
Where did I get this?
Yeah. Explain to him his own thought process.
No, I mean, I'm not making this up. I've still thought in nature, when you see a red thing, you can tell that that's poisonous. I'm not sure if that's
an old Brooklyn thing.
What about a cardinal?
Yeah. Well, so you're not wrong because red and yellow are really common warning colors in the natural world. And you see a lot of red and yellow poison dart frogs as well. And so, yeah, I think the idea behind those colors is that they're really easy for predators to pick out. And the reason those warning colors work is because the predator can see the color really easily, attacks, but then has a negative experience with that color. And so it's easy to remember and avoid the next time those really bright colors like red and yellow.
Okay. Well, it seems like the golden poison dart frog is pretty lethal for humans, according to.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Okay.
So,
okay.
I mean, I granted these things are like they're bright red. Are these the ones with the blue legs too? Or are they just? Oh, okay. So like when you look up poison dart frog, like that's the frog that usually comes up.
Yeah. So they're called the strawberry poison frog because they have red, bodies, and then they usually have blue or black limbs, and they have little black spots like strawberry seeds. However, the reason I'm interested in them is because they don't always look like that. And where I study them in Panama is on islands off the coast of Panama in the Caribbean. And on every island, they are actually a different color. Some of them are red, but some of them are yellow, some are orange, some are green, some are blue.
So it's like Darwin's finches in the Galapagos almost.
Yeah, exactly. So we've been trying to figure out why are they all different colors and what's driving that.
Right. Oh, yeah. So is that like genetic isolation, geographic isolation, like all that I'm sure is coming into play in your research. And that is so cool. So what's their average size of them? Obviously they come in every color of the rainbow. They're like Skittles, but what's the average? They are they not? I mean, is that a fair comparison?
We've called them Skittles before. Yeah.
Ah, see?
Okay, yeah. Dr. Cori.
Can you let her answer?
Aren't these frogs, don't they have these bronze statues in Hawaii that some artist has replicated and sold?
She's in a Latin country. Why would what?
No, but I'm talking about.
I bet I know what you're talking about.
Oh, okay.
There is a poison frog that was introduced to Hawaii
Oh,
So that's probably that one.
yikes.
Well, I think are you familiar with the artist that does those bronze poison? I think okay.
Frogman. Anyways,
Yeah.
back
All
to
right.
their size. How, I mean, I'm imagining they're frogs and are they like teenier frogs? Are they on the large size, or how
Yeah,
much do they
so
weigh? A couple grams?
among the whole dart frog family, there's a range in sizes. So the largest ones are probably like, I don't know, a couple inches, maybe.
That's pretty
in length.
big.
But the one I study is only like 2 centimeters in length. So like the length of like your thumb to your first knuckle. They're little
Wow.
guys.
How do you even find that in the wild?
Well, they're really brightly colored. That makes them easy. And they also sing, they call. So you can hear them and then go to where you hear the sound.
No kidding. How much do they weigh if they're like that teenies? Are they like 2 grams or something, or?
Half a gram.
Half a gram.
Whoa. And that's
So-
like wow, that's amazing.
You said you were in Panama because I'm looking at something that says that they like 70 to 100% humidity level, which
Yeah,
is
so
pretty
what's the
sweaty.
ideal? Yeah, what's the ideal poison dart or strawberry poison dart frog environment? I mean, obviously swampy conditions,
Sweaty.
rainforest.
Yeah.
Not here in the desert.
No.
Yeah, generally hot and humid. So they don't actually associate themselves much with ponds and streams like most amphibians do.
Huh.
They use the water that collects inside of plants in really, really rainy environments. So usually like bromeliad plants, if you know what a bromeliad is, or like you picture like the top of a pineapple, like that
Oh yeah.
and the water collects in there, and that's where they put their tadpoles to develop. So they don't actually need big water bodies, but they need lots of rain to fill the vegetation with water.
Wow.
So Dr. Cori, is their skin poisonous or
Well,
is there?
wait. We'll get into the poison aspect. Hold on. There's a couple other things I wanted to hear first, and then we will go to the exciting part. Hold on now. He likes to jump ahead. Sorry, Dr. Cori. Scott, do you have any questions about their environment before we move on?
Not environment, but just in a perspective of how did you choose such an obscure animal to study?
Yeah, what took
I'm
you to
curious
Panama?
about that. Like, I know people like we've interviewed shark experts, and like that's pretty cool. Like, common. All right, the ocean sharks are big. They're
They're
shark
out there.
right. Like, why such an obscure animal? As cool as they look, but like, what's the reason?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it must be something about my own biology, I guess. I was always attracted to frogs. I guess like as a kid, like they're the thing that you can catch that's not gonna like bite you and it's not gonna like hurt you. And even these poisonous frogs, I mean, unless you eat them,
Ew.
you're
It
gonna
was
be
the PhD lottery wheel, and it wound up on
Yeah.
the poison dart frogs and said, "I'll take it."
That's really
No,
cool.
I was mostly fascinated by their colors and their warning signals and
Yes.
how they communicate with each other.
And one more thing, sorry. How difficult is it being in Pittsburgh where these things aren't really found and having to study something that's on a whole nother country, like resource wise?
Well, I get to visit Panama a lot, which is
That's-
great. So when we're not in a pandemic, that's better.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, as a grad student, it was awesome because I did my graduate work in Michigan, which is kind of a cold
Ooh.
place.
Oh,
I like those
Too
cold
cold.
places, Dr.
Too
Corey.
cold.
You are a glutton for punishment.
Too
Yeah.
cold.
punishment.
Every winter, I got to leave Michigan and go.
Oh, well, see, if you
I
got to
went
only
to
spend the
Panama.
nice months in Michigan, there you go.
Okay, so Dr. Cori, I got to jump on this question.
Oh,
Every animal expert that we have, somehow or other, the Department of Defense is studying them for some reason or
yeah.
other.
Oh, there it is. There
So
it is.
I
You
want
think
to
I'm
know
gonna say no?
what that
No,
connection is.
Sounds like you're going to say yes.
As long as you can discuss it. I don't want you to I don't want you to get like your signal will go out because
Yeah,
Right,
you don't
and then
want to
we're all
see a
being-
red. You don't want to see a red beam show
Yeah.
up on her
Right.
forehead, right?
And then
you
we're
just
all
say
wiretapped
whatever you
now.
could say. What is the DOD? Why is the DOD studying these frogs? And I'm assuming they are studying them because they study every animal practically for some engineering purpose. But go ahead, you take
Okay,
it away.
so you are not wrong. Our
Ah.
research has been funded by the Department of Defense. However, it was not the poison frog research. It was research that we were doing on an amphibian disease, a fungal disease. And
What do they want to do with the disease? What does the DOD need?
so yeah, the Department of Defense is in charge of stewarding a lot of land a
Oh,
lot of wildlife in this country. So they want to be able to, so the funding we had was to understand how disease and climate change are going to interact. So they want to be able to predict when climate change is going to lead to disease outbreaks that will threaten or endanger species. So that's what we were working on for them.
oh,
Okay.
okay.
So how is the poison dart frogs population doing? Are they doing okay?
Well, the one that I study is doing okay, and that's because it lives in a place that's actually too hot and humid for this fungal disease. But elsewhere in Panama, amphibians have been wiped out by the fungal disease, and that's actually how I started working in Panama
Oh.
in the first place, was trying to figure out, what was going on with that.
So, I mean, I'm sure you're obviously aware of this, but it seemed like, I don't know, maybe it was the 20 teens or something. All of a sudden, amphibians were like on the front page of everything, and because they were all just mysteriously dying. Was that fungal outbreak that was okay? Okay, I'm just kind of
Yeah,
putting
I mean,
things together.
that and other things. Like
Right.
like I said, amphibians have really, sensitive, delicate skin, and they're permeable to everything in the environment. So sometimes we can't be sure that it's one thing or the other, but that disease, has been linked to declines and extinctions in over 500 amphibian species. So that seems like
Whoa.
a big one.
Dr. Cori, was the disease leaked from the lab or was it from a bat?
Yes, those are the two options, right?
Yeah.
Now
Yes,
that-
those are the only options you have.
Now,
now
what human interaction was there any human interaction that has caused the decline in it, and like what specifically have humans been
If I
doing?
can interject, Scott, humans are the problem for every animal
Oh,
on
wait,
this
you know
earth.
what? Yes, and
Yeah.
we agree to disagree. But in this regard, like, what have they been doing? Have they been just like moving in?
Goddamn plastic, Scott.
Yeah.
Plastic.
Hey, my state just got rid of plastic bags throughout the entire thing, and I'm adjusting myself here. But if it's
Get a canvas bag and start reusing. God.
yeah. So what human interaction?
Yeah, so it probably still is our fault. It's most likely us moving amphibians all over the world for various reasons. So the fungal disease, we think the latest theory is that it came from Asia and it moved
Of
all over
course.
the world
Stop
in
it.
the last about 100 years or so. And so we think it was the global trade in amphibians for research, for food, for all sorts
Illegal
of things.
pet trade.
Illegal pet trade, all of that probably moved it to all these different places.
Speaking of amphibians and world travel and illegal pet trade, have you ever brought any specimens from Panama home? And if so, how do you do you have to get like a passport for the frog, or like how do you get clearance to bring this non-native poisonous species to another country?
Yeah.
DOD.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm sure they clear you. Yeah.
No, they have nothing to do with that one. But yeah, so anytime we do bring a sample back from Panama, we have to have the correct permits. And all of that has to be lined up before we go. So the poison frogs as a group are classified under the CITES protocol, which is the group that keeps track of trade in endangered species. Trade in endangered species. So for them, we have to get special permits to import anything that has to do with the poison frogs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. How long do these things live? I mean, I haven't
Right.
known amphibians didn't have very long lifespans. Is that correct? Or
Yeah, that's a good question. So I know now that, in captivity, the species I study can live more than 12 or 13 years, which is a really
Oh,
long
wow.
time for an amphibian. But we
Yeah.
did some research actually in the wild to try to figure out how long they were living on average. And there were actually, wild frogs that we recaptured after 4 or 5 years.
Oh,
So
wow.
they apparently can live a long time, even though they're like, the size of your thumbnail. Pretty
Right.
impressive.
So what are their predators if they have any? I mean, fungus aside, but yeah, if they do have any predators, what would prey on that?
Right. So in theory, they do have predators. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so amazingly brightly colored, right?
Right.
But the challenge is figuring out what those predators are, because they don't get attacked very often. So we have a few sort of anecdotal accounts of things like birds attacking them. I saw a crab take one down once.
A crab.
A crab, yeah, I just like took him down his little hole.
Whoa.
Yeah, and some snakes, but like they don't seem to have an obvious like this is their predator that
Right.
we can point
Like
to.
they're the obvious food source of some other animal. Wow. Okay.
Isn't that kind of strange though? How they would? I mean, I'm an amateur at knowing animals and stuff like that, but wouldn't they develop the poison because they're a main prey of a predator? Like evolution would tell you that, like a porcupine with spikes and whatnot. So like, does it go as far back as if they were just regular frogs that developed this poison because of something specifically?
Yeah, I mean, they must have predators. I mean, everything has predators. It's just that, like, in some cases, you can say, like, this is the predator on that. You know, this is their main predator. And for these little frogs, we haven't figured it out yet. But yeah, you're right that, like, the fact that they're toxic and brightly colored suggests that their whole lineage of frogs has evolved that as a mechanism to avoid being eaten by predators. So because they're brightly colored, we can guess that whatever predator it was, they're one that uses their visual system to find their prey. So that's why we
That
think
makes
things like
sense.
birds are probably good guesses. Snakes, maybe not so much because they're not very much visual predators. They more use like chemical cues to find their prey.
Right. Chemoreceptors.
If they're poisonous when you eat them, do they enact that when they're being eaten, or is it like too late? Do they have to like?
Yeah, let's start from the beginning. First of all, are they born poisonous? Do they become poisonous? Where does the poison come from? What is the poison? We'll get into that.
Good question. So in this species that I study, we believe that they are actually born poisonous because they get those toxins from the moms who put them into the eggs that they feed to the tadpoles. But that's not true for all poison frogs. So some poison frogs probably don't start out toxic because they don't get those eggs.
Oh, no kidding.
From their moms. Yeah. So in my species, yes, we think they start out toxic. In other species, no. But the interesting thing about their toxins is that they don't make the toxins themselves. They get it from their diet. So the tadpoles are getting it from the eggs that they're eating, and the adults are getting it from the insects that they eat. So they eat leaf litter arthropods like ants and mites, and those animals are getting their toxins from the plants and fungi that they eat.
So Dr. Cori, the frogs do not have a gland that creates these toxins, is what you're saying?
So all frogs have some toxin glands in their skin, but the main ones that make these poison frogs poisonous are not ones that they produce themselves. They are alkaloids that they get from their diet.
This is interesting because I'm on the Oakland Zoo page. Oakland Zoo has a yellow, which wouldn't, hold on. The Panamanian golden frog.
That's our local zoo, Dr. Cori. So
so here's a question I have for you, because it's interesting that what you're saying. It says that it's most toxic. The Panamanian golden frog's secretions are the most toxic of the entire group. The Panamanian golden frog has multiple cardiotoxins and neurotoxins. Can you explain the difference between those two?
Wow, that's scary.
So before you go too far, that's the species I did my PhD on. So thank you for asking me the question that I absolutely know the answer to.
Oh, good. We want to make you look good.
Yeah, exactly. So cardiotoxin is a toxin that basically attacks your heart and makes it stop beating. And then a neurotoxin is one that focuses on your nervous system and shuts down your muscles more than your...
DOD wants both.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, exactly. So that frog you're looking at on the website is actually not technically a poison frog.
Oh.
It is toxic, but it's not in the poison frog family. And that one, its toxin is called tetrodotoxin, which is a really interesting story because there are a lot of different animals that have tetrodotoxin. Like,
is that Zetekit, that one?
Yeah, Atelopus zetekii is the name. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So it shares that toxin with blue-ringed octopus and boo-boo pufferfish and newts and all sorts of things. And you know how all these animals got this similar toxin is kind of a big mystery, but it's probably produced by a bacterial symbiont. So it's probably a bacterium that's on their skin that's making the toxin.
No.
So it says it has two forms of how do you say that?
Zetekitoxin.
Zetekitoxins. They're two
Kind of like your
different.
last name almost. That's very
Yeah.
fitting.
Oh, yeah.
How are these two forms different?
I don't know.
Okay, we'll get back to that.
Yeah.
All
Okay,
right.
so wait, what? Okay, now you got to explain toxic frog versus poison frog. Both sound toxic to the layperson. Like if you say poison frog, toxic frog, I'm like, I don't want to touch it. But what is the difference between them?
Yeah, a toxin and a poison are probably pretty similar. What you want to distinguish them from is a venom. So a venom is something that's delivered through a bite, but a poison is something that you have to ingest. So yeah, these are poisonous. You have to eat them.
Okay.
They're not going to eat you.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah, venom, it's venomous. If it bites you and it kills you, it's venomous. If you eat it and it kills you, it's poisonous. That's like a little rule I
I
learned.
never knew that. I never knew
Well,
that.
now you know, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Okay, that's phenomenal. So yeah, so back to our little strawberry frog. So they eat insects and ants and whatnot. Is that their main diet? Just these for rainforest insects? Okay.
Yeah.
And so are they toxic to the touch? I mean, when you're handling these specimens, are you, in a hazmat suit, or how does that work?
No, I would be careful not to put like my hands in my mouth or in my eyes or something like that after I've handled them. That would probably not be awesome. But unless you have some sort of cut or something, some way for it to get into your bloodstream, you're fine handling them. I don't know if I would do it with some of the really toxic ones from South America, but
So
yeah.
don't bare hand the frogs is what we're getting at here.
Yeah, maybe not.
What would happen though? Like, would your hands blow up, like just swell? Or like, I mean, I'm sure someone's tested this. Like, there's been guinea pigs, right? Like, sadly. So,
Yeah.
like, what exactly would happen if I just tripped and my bare hands accidentally squashed or touched two of these?
And his
Like,
face.
Oh
and
my
his, and
God.
his face.
Yeah. And then I touch my face. Like, what's happening? Like, what goes on? How long do I have to live?
I think you'll be fine.
All right.
I mean, that their toxins are, because they're meant for their predators, and they're meant to leave the predator alive so that it can learn to not do that again, right?
Oh, it's a warning shot. It gives it a little warning shot.
Right. And so I can tell you that, like, we've done some experiments with not their natural predators, but things like chickens, where we watched a chicken try out eating one of these guys, and like it clearly tastes bad. They like rub their beaks on the ground and like try to get rid of that taste, but both the chicken and the frog come out unharmed in that case.
Huh.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, good. No, chicken on frog crime is not a problem. That's good to know.
Dr. Cori, I'm reading something from Britannica that says officially the International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources has classified the Panamanian golden toad as a critically endangered species, noting that it could be extinct in the wild. The most recent census of the species, which was conducted in 2018, reported that there were fewer than 50 adults remaining.
Wait, so what's the toad? Are a toad and the frog the same thing?
So this is the one that I said is not truly a poison frog. That's the one I did my PhD on. And
Gotcha.
Yes, that's true. That those guys, they went downhill fast when that fungus got to Panama. Although there are a few populations that are surviving with the fungus, and that's awesome. Yeah.
Wow.
What is the fungus? What does the fungus do to them, Dr. Cori?
Yeah, so the fungus attacks their skin, and it makes it really hard for them to do the things that amphibian skin does, like exchange ions and do things like water balance. So it eventually can lead to basically a froggy heart attack and can kill them.
Wow.
Yikes. Okay. So speaking of heart attacks, that's all my favorite things. You mentioned something about their communication, which is something we do like to touch on our show. Obviously, they, frogs ribbit. I'm sure they do more things than that, but
no, they do more things.
Are they? Do they have like any like chemical communication, or what are the strawberry frogs' ways of communicating?
Yeah, so I can't tell you that they don't have chemical communication. That's something that we haven't really studied. The salamanders in the amphibian world are the better chemical communicators than the frogs and toads.
Okay.
But they definitely communicate with sound. So yeah, these frogs the males make calls. Mostly it's males that call in frogs, and that call attracts the females. And then they have this elaborate courtship between the males and the females that can last for hours before they actually mate.
Oh.
So yeah, call is part of it, but also one of the things our lab has been studying is that color is also an important part of their communication. So the females are choosing males based on their color, and the males are also choosing which other males to fight with over their territories based on their color.
So
I
I'm
can tell you one thing,
Yeah.
Dr. Cori, when my wife turns red, I know that's a bad sign.
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm assuming they want the reddest, brightest, yellowest, male frog out there.
Oh, hold on, Dr. Cori, I got to ask you about this because this is very interesting. This has really piqued my interest. This is back again with this Panamanian frog here. It says the male frogs make a whistling noise and have at least 2 different kinds of calls. This is especially interesting behavior because the frogs have no external eardrums. Researchers think that they may detect sound through their lungs, which are located right beneath the skin and vibrate when sounds hit them. Tell us more about these lung.
Wow.
Are you familiar with this?
Yeah, so actually that's one of the reasons I got excited about studying that frog for my PhD, because I was interested in these frogs that communicate with sound but don't have external ears.
Wait, yeah, that's really weird.
You think it's the lungs that are detecting it?
It could be. So they don't have external ears, which is like the sort of round tympanum,
Right, like what
that's
we
on the
have.
outside of a frog. Like if you picture a bullfrog, they've got this big round thing on the outside of their head. They don't have that, but they do have the internal ear structure. So they have some of the bones on the inside of the ear that can still transmit sound waves.
Okay.
Yeah, so they could detect sound with anything that vibrates. So some frogs, if it's a low frequency sound, they actually detect it through their forearms through the ground. And yeah, so maybe that's like vibrating the lungs or something like that.
I guess it's like if we're playing music really loud, you could hear it, like you can feel it through your chest. Like
the
that
bass.
kind of
Well,
be,
there's bone conduction, like when you go
Yeah.
to the dentist and the drill is vibrating in your hand. It's
I have a question about this fungus that nearly knocked out a lot of them. You as an expert in your field or any field, how much do you have to stay out of things when you decide it's natural selection or as opposed to human interaction? You know what I mean? Like when they're filming people attack, like animals attack, and they film, they stay out of it. So like, how do you guys distinguish that?
Right, that's a good question. So when that fungus came, we had a little bit of warning because it had come sort of as a wave of epidemic through Costa Rica and Western Panama. And so a lot of these species we thought were going to get completely wiped out because they were like sort of endemic or only found in this one region of Panama. And so a lot of what we did was actually take some individuals out of the wild, put them into captive breeding colonies just until we could figure out what was going to happen, because we didn't want to lose them entirely. And so yeah, those Panamanian golden frogs that are in the Oakland Zoo are part of that initiative to like get some into captivity while we figure out, if there's some solution to this fungus. But on the natural selection side of things, we couldn't get all of them into captivity, obviously. What's interesting is, a decade later in Panama, after this fungus went through, we're now seeing some of these populations start to come back. And so it does look like natural selection probably has worked for some of these populations and some of these species, that they're now not as susceptible to the pathogen as they once were.
Right. I was going to ask that too, because, sometimes with animals, like one dies out, so another one could like come around. Like something's been on Earth for 70 million years, it's gone, but then like a new species comes. So like, was there a second wave of newer species? And you're saying, yeah, it had a different thing. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it was more like individuals from those populations that had some like
adaptation or something advantageous at the time.
Yeah, some allele or something that gave them an advantage, and it was there in the population, before the fungus came through. But like the ones that had that were the ones that survived. And then also that we are seeing, like, if you take the whole amphibian community, all the different species as a whole, we are seeing that some species that were kind of rare before are now like doing really well and pretty common, and then some that were really common before are really rare now. So there is kind of like a shift in the whole community going on.
It is crazy. We just sit back as humans and just watch Earth take its course. Things happen.
If we can just sit back and watch, but we got to we mess it up. Dr. Cori, are there what is the most recent species of amphibian frog that we've discovered? Is there ones that are just popping up now that we're finding out about, or we kind of know about
Or
all?
species we thought were extinct and
Oh, I'm sure there have been species described like in the last week. Like there's species described
Really?
every day.
Wow.
Yeah, of amphibians. Yeah, there's like, oh, am I giving you the number for just frogs and toads? There's like 5,000, I think, frog and toad species on the planet that have been described. So there's a lot of them, and we still have many, many more to describe.
no kidding.
Mhm.
So this singing, what is it? You don't have to mimic it. Is it like an attractive sound, or like, I'm sure that makes them easier to find when you're hearing them? Like, can you pinpoint like that's a strawberry dart frog? Like we need to go this way.
Yeah, so the strawberry dart frog, it sounds like a little like kind of a trill or a pulsing noise.
No, that's awesome.
And yeah, it's pretty easy to identify once you know what it is.
So do they have like a breeding season, or, I mean, since they're in Panama, I imagine it's pretty similar weather year round. Are they wet, or I guess wet and dry seasons, but do they have a mating season? And then do you know how many eggs usually come out when
Yeah,
they're ready?
so they don't seem to really have a mating season. They seem to be sort of reproducing year round. And that, like you said, is because it's pretty much, there is a drier season in that
Right.
part of Panama, but it's still wet.
Right.
So yeah. And then in terms of eggs, they generally lay, like the average size of a clutch, which is what you call a group of eggs, is laid
Right.
at one is 4. So they don't lay very many eggs at a time.
That's
which,
it?
if you remember, the mom has to take care of all the tadpoles that hatch from those eggs. So that's probably a
Oh.
good thing. She doesn't have enough eggs to feed, huge numbers of mouths of tadpoles.
Yeah, I was thinking like, 100 or something eggs. Are there frogs that produce that many eggs and they're just like, okay, hope you survive, bye?
Yeah, most frogs produce hundreds or thousands of eggs in a clutch. And yes, they do exactly what you just said. They just, see it.
Dr. Cori, when you go to the poison dart frog convention, do you have like the frog calling contest? Is that a popular event?
I have never been to the poison dart frog convention, but it sounds amazing.
Okay.
But it is, something you occasionally get asked to do in this field, which is like make the sound of the thing that you study. So
That's awesome.
Well, when you're at the convention, I would not take your eye off your drink in case somebody slips a poison frog into your drink.
yeah, that would be bad.
So yeah, let's get into this. How did they get the name dart frog? I mean, these groups of frogs known as the poison dart frogs. What is the history behind that? If you could explain that to us.
Sure. So yeah, there are certain indigenous groups in Central and South America that figured out that they could basically rub the tips of their darts that they use for hunting on the backs of these frogs, and that would make their tips more likely to kill when they made it into their whatever they were hunting. So yeah, there were some groups that would just rub the darts on the frogs, and I think some actually sort of like made like concoctions out of the frog skin to tip the darts with, which is why they got that name.
Okay.
Are any of these frogs revered by certain cultures, Dr. Cori?
Good question. I would guess that the answer is probably yes. So I mean, that the one that you're looking at on your screen, that Panamanian golden frog, is like the national frog of Panama, and it has its
That's
own
awesome.
in its own day in Panama in every August. So yeah, there's definitely they have cultural significance in a lot of places.
Does the U.S. have a national frog? I don't know. Like
I don't think we have a national frog.
Okay.
No, but I know in the state of Pennsylvania we do have a state amphibian.
Which is?
It's called a hellbender. It's the biggest salamander in the United States. It's like,
Oh yeah, yes.
big.
Those are in Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
I gotta look that up.
Yeah, you do. They're crazy looking. Okay, so never. All right, Pennsylvania. We're gonna put on the bottom of the list now. Places to go.
With,
Wow.
with the environment that they're in South America,
Central.
Is there any place in the US they could actually survive and adapt to?
Louisiana.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, definitely Louisiana, Florida. There's other invasive frog species that have come from the same area of the Caribbean that are doing unfortunately well in Florida and Louisiana and even parts of Texas. So yeah, those are the places where they could survive.
Now, are they popular in the illegal pet trade? I imagine since they're so colorful and whatnot. I mean, unfortunately, just about every wild animal is popular in the illegal pet trade, but like some animals are a little bit more popular than others.
Sure, they're
And
big in Japan. They like beetles and things like that.
what?
Yeah. Yeah, they are pretty popular in the illegal pet trade. There's a lot of people that are breeding them, breeding them for the pet trade too, but there's
Right.
also a lot that are sort of illegally taking them too.
Fantastic. Yeah. So have you ever caught any frog poachers out in your field research?
Yes, I have observed frog poachers.
Oh, and are you just like, I mean, yeah, obviously you don't, it's not worth losing your life over, but I mean, do you just kind of, I didn't see it, bye.
Yeah, in one case, they were poaching from a transect that I was studying frogs on. So like in the process of poaching, like ruining all of my data on the population size. So in that case, I actually bought the frogs back from the guy for for a much smaller sum than what they would have been worth on the trade. But just so that
Right.
they would not leave my transect. But he probably took them after that.
Right. Oh, I would be so, I'd be so pissed. Just like, look, I have a study area and you're not only are you messing it up, but you're now taking my study specimen. So I need you to
Right.
stop.
Right.
That's pretty good. You
Right.
see, you did save the frogs. You had to buy them
Well,
back, but you did.
It's really hard to measure a population size, to figure out how my goal was to figure out if there was some sort of amount of take that these populations could deal with and not have
Right.
a negative impact. But in the meantime, there was illegal.
Right. You're
illegal
ruining my
take.
study and I need you to stop.
Right.
That's
So
pretty
Dr.
crazy.
Cori, aside from the fungus, I'm sure, changes in the environment with respect to the things that they live on, the places where they like the environment they like to live, is that sustaining them right now?
What is
Yeah, what is your
The
question?
things that they eat, the places that they live, aside from the fungus, are the other environmental factors suitable?
Yeah, no. I mean, is the answer ever really yes?
Right.
In that scenario, no. So yeah, the big 5 things that are probably responsible for amphibian declines include disease, but the number 1 is probably land use change and habitat fragmentation, habitat loss.
Is Panama amenable to protecting these animals?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard in some of these countries where protecting the wildlife is one of many things they have to balance all at the same time.
Yeah, like feeding the people, not having the people starve.
I mean, to be honest, the US isn't that great at it either. I mean, we want to act like we're the poster, well, we want to be the poster child for eco-friendliness, but we're not that great at it either. So I think that's probably just a national and international problem for every country.
I was gonna ask that too. I know this is you might not know this might be like a touchy topic if you do know to not say, but with that being the case and like those countries needing funds, do you think there's backdoor deals where they allow the poachers in and like it's kind of a way to take the money to fund certain things? You know what I mean? Or would you say things like that go on?
I actually don't know. I've only, and as a non-Panamanian myself, I'm not sure what they would tell me anything going on like that. But
I could see that kind of happening though in certain, it could probably happen here, honestly, but just, I don't know. I always wonder stuff like that with poaching and government involvement.
Yeah.
I'm sure someone's getting paid off.
Are like concessions for mining and things like that, where they, have to destroy a huge, the habitat, and it happens that, a really important species is there. And
Yes. Are you out there with your little frog carrier? Like, let me get these frogs really quick.
Yeah, not me in Panama, but unfortunately some of my Panamanian colleagues have, been involved in those sorts of things.
Oh, that's frustrating and sad. So, what I was going to ask next, so with these indigenous people that you were using them as using them for their darts, would they just keep a little colony and with them, or would they go out and hunt for them, bring them back, or would they just be like, we're going to take these 6 and you're the dart frogs for today, you're for however long you live?
I have a feeling that these frogs were just so common, around, they could just, find one when they needed it and use it and put it back. I don't think it really necessarily had to, hurt the frog or use up the frog in any way. So
right.
I have a feeling that they were easy to come by.
Okay. Okay. So let's say someone were to eat one of these strawberry frogs. Would you die?
I don't think so, although I don't know anyone who has actually eaten one. I know people who have like
Probably because they're dead.
picked them up and like tested them like a battery on their tongue to see what, how good they are, but I have not done that.
And what
I've done that with 9-volt batteries.
Yeah. I've done it with a battery, but not with the frog.
And what was the consensus? What was that like?
Shocking. It's shocking.
Shush.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, they said, "Ooh, that's a good one." So
Oh.
that's all I can tell you. I don't know if it makes your tongue tingle or what, but
It's going to be a no for me, but
Yeah.
I'm glad someone else tried it. Wow. Okay. So then what can we do to help amphibians in general? We'll bring it back to how can we help our amphibian friends in general here?
Upgrade your fungus.
Well, beside that.
yeah, the fungus is a tough one. I mean, there are things that you can do to avoid moving that around. That's a big thing. So like one of the things we do is if we're out like tromping around in one wetland, we make sure that we like bleach our gear before we go into another wetland so that we're not bringing the pathogen from one place to another.
Right.
Another thing that can be bad is like if you're a fisher person and you use amphibians as bait, where some people do that in some parts of the world. If you're moving that bait water around, you can be moving that pathogen around too. So otherwise, avoiding purchasing amphibians from the pet trade, because there's really no safeguards on whether they're healthy when they're moving from place to place.
Dr. Cori, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Are there any frogs that will give you a psychedelic trip, like give you some
like South Park, you lick the toad, or isn't there a Simpsons episode, Scott, where they're like licking toads?
Which ones are they, and how do you control the dose?
Toads have a reputation for this, and how you control the dose, I think, is the key question, because I think it is probably pretty easy to go from like, a little high from a toad to dead from a toad. So
okay.
We'll
stick with the brownies. It's safer.
Right. So no, this is not toads, but there have been cases with some of the newts out in you guys' part of the world, actually, where like they would crawl into the water buckets of campers and they didn't know it, and then like they drink the water and then they die.
Oh, is that how they figured it out? Because I was wondering who would ever lick a frog and say, "Oh shit, I'm having a trip."
A newt, not a frog, a newt.
Those are newts, yeah. But yeah, I mean, the toads do the same thing. Like dogs eat toads because they're being dogs, and they'll die from the toxins. So those are the ones in our country. Yeah.
So what is the difference between a toad and a frog? Like, are they different species or? Okay.
Yeah, toads are one of the groups within the frogs. So all toads are frogs, but not all frogs are toads. So toads have shorter legs, drier, bumpier skin.
Okay, gotcha. Because I was like, I'm sure maybe you're familiar with that children's book, Mr. Frog and Mr. Toad.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So
Cori, I'm looking at a hellbender, and this looks like some prehistoric creature that was glued together with different parts, like a platypus almost, and it has legs, I think. Do you call those things legs, or what do you call them?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, isn't it? Doesn't it look like a giant lasagna noodle?
It's got a tail like an eel or a shark. I don't know. It's got a mouth like.
Scotty looking it up.
It's a very strange looking creature. Okay.
So they have some really great nicknames. They're sometimes called snot otters, or they're called lasagna lizards. Or they have some really good.
Well, hellbender's pretty exciting. I mean, I'd say just their regular name is a pretty exciting name.
Yeah.
Snot otter.
And these salamanders, like, have they been around for millions of years? Because they look prehistoric.
Yeah, I mean, amphibians
are pretty old, aren't they? Like some of the oldest species.
Million years, yeah.
Or not species, but like family or whatever. Yeah, amphibians are very ancient technology, if you will.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, the smaller animals survived when the dinosaurs died because they could hide underground.
Oh yes. So aside from like living in pond, like rain-made ponds and leaves, will they burrow or anything? Or are they arboreal, or what are they? Are they both?
Yeah, there are frogs that burrow and spend most of their time underground. In the desert Southwest in the US, there are these cute little actually frogs that are called spadefoot toads. that just basically come out only to mate and lay eggs and have tadpoles, and then they go right back down into the ground. So yeah, there's lots of burrowing.
They're the true mole
frogs.
people, mole frogs.
Dr. Cori, do you have an associate that is studying the hellbender, or
I do have friends that study
we
hellbender.
we need to get them on, because this hellbender, it
Oh,
says that
he's stuck
it's
on the hellbender.
inside the fight to save the hellbender, they're slipping away. So there must be, I'm not sure what's making them slip away, but this is like a weird looking creature, and that one.
You definitely do a hellbender show.
Yeah,
Sure.
we would love to. Yes, if you
Ellie-
have a colleague that wants to come on.
Yeah, Ellie, the way your dad's reacting, you got to get Paul Clerker from Alien Sharks on too, so he could look at some of those things.
Yeah. Oh, I know. So, Dr. Cori, what's your favorite field experience, or give us a good field experience, and then one that was maybe kind of sketch. I mean, having poachers, that seems kind of crazy, but
Yeah.
your
Shout
best
out
field
being on the frog.
experience and your not so best field experience before we wrap up here.
Yeah, definitely the best field experience was that Panamanian golden frog that I did my PhD on, that basically I thought it was extinct by the end of my PhD.
Oh,
At the end of like 10 years, me and one of my good colleagues decided we would go looking for them again, because I kept getting asked, like, should we declare this thing extinct? And I'm like, well, who's looking for it? So we went looking for it again. And on our first trip, we found just a single one of those frogs, but it was like the first time we'd seen one in such a long time. We thought it was gone. So that was definitely.
was
the
that
best.
published when you guys found that? Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
we
because
did.
I want to say I saw like some article where it's like frog that was thought to be extinct for the last decade was they found, like, scientists found one adult out in the wild. Okay.
Yeah,
That's so
we have found
cool.
a few more since then, but like only a few. And yeah, but that was definitely the best. Oh, I don't know what worst. I mean,
So are you ethically, morally, legally allowed to try to increase the population when you find one male here and one female there? Or you can't mess with that? What's the protocol?
I mean, usually in those situations, a bunch of biologists and conservation biologists put our heads together and try to figure out what is the best solution. And sometimes there are things that we can do, like those animals that we have in captivity. Those are the same species, but they're in captivity. Sometimes we can release them back to their natural habitat and see if that works.
You ever take them over for like a play date, from one captivity to the
No,
other?
you don't want to spread the fungus. If they have the
Sort of.
fungus, then you're
No, if
contaminating.
they're not infected, I mean, you want to increase the population, so.
Right, but the problem is they're also still susceptible because they weren't around for the natural selection bit. So.
Oh, yes, you could be putting the weaker gened
Right.
ones back out in the. Oh, yeah, that's a good
Tricky
point.
bit.
Is there anyone working on a vaccination for the fungus?
Yeah.
Who's
there
giving
are
frog
people-
shots? Sorry.
Yeah, there are people working on so many different ways to try to fix this fungus problem. So I have colleagues that are working on using probiotics, using skin microbes that are good at fighting against the fungus on the skin, like bathing them in beneficial microbes.
Is
The
this
frog
called a
spa.
chytrid fungus? CHYTRID?
Yeah, it's pronounced chytrid, but that's the one. Yeah.
It looks like sight, but chytrid.
Okay, a lot of if you look at the word lichen, like it doesn't look like
It's
pronounced
affecting the
lichen.
hellbender as well.
It is. Yeah.
Save the hellbender and the frogs.
Definitely. Yeah.
So,
African clawed frog spreads deadly amphibian fungus.
so that, I mean, that's so frustrating that, these things, I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with the Tasmanian devil, but they have that facial disease that's just wiping them out. And unfortunately, it seems like almost none of them have some type of, allele or, phenotype or genotype that's making them be okay. But it's horrific. I mean, they're about to be wiped off the face of the earth because it's just like this disease. None of them seem to have some sort of natural immunity to it. But
so Dr. Cori, is this spread by people releasing frogs in the wild? Is that how is that the number one reason this stuff spreads around? Because I mean, you have it in Panama, you have it in Pennsylvania. It seems crazy.
She made a point about bleaching your gear. And remember when we went to the aquarium and they had us clean our shoes before we
Yeah.
walked around.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
think about cross-contamination in a
Yeah.
kitchen. I imagine on that scale with people traveling all through the country
Yeah.
on your clothes.
Right. So they actually think the bullfrog is a big part of it because the bullfrog is mostly what's farmed for like frog legs. And
Ah.
it's moved all around the world and farmed all around the world for frog legs. And so probably the bullfrog and the trade in the bullfrog is probably a big part of why that fungus is moving around because bullfrogs are really, they can tolerate like really heavy loads of this pathogen without getting sick. So they're like really good sort of super spreaders of the fungus.
So it's almost like the natural yeast on our skin that, like we can tolerate, and then it gets out of whack. And okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, for the bullfrog it is. For other frogs,
Right,
like that
it's
Panamanian
just-
golden frog, like a little tiny infection will lead to death.
Right. Wow. So do they have like kind of a mucusy kind of film, don't they?
Yeah.
Okay, what is that made of? I'm assuming that's to keep their skin nice and moist, but what does that consist of? And
Yeah,
are
the
some
mucus-
slimier than others?
Yep, the mucus, there's definitely some are slimier than others, but the mucus is actually really cool. It does a lot of things for the amphibian. So one of the important things it does is help with immune defenses. So there's a lot of there's things in the mucus that include like antibodies against particular pathogens, but there's also things called antimicrobial peptides that the amphibians produce themselves and they secrete into their mucus. So the mucus is like a really important protective layer.
Yeah.
Well, this is similar to fish. Fish have a slime on them that keep them healthy and keep. They have it's called ick. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a disease that fish get, but they also have a healthy slime on them. I suspect it's kind of similar.
Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
We're gonna have to come back and do a hellbender.
Okay.
We may have to just do an amphibian.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have Dr. Cori back to just talk about all of her amphibian research, to be honest. If she wants to come back, we probably drove her nuts. You probably drove her nuts.
Do you know Thomas Floyd, a wildlife biologist with Georgia Department of Natural Resources?
I do not know him.
Okay, he's the fungus is found in hellbender habitats on the animals themselves. He's talking about this. Boy, I didn't even know that this fungus was killing off the hellbenders. I didn't even know what a hellbender was until we spoke to you. So I hope you don't mind our basic questions, but I guess we appreciate your.
Yes, thank you very much for your time.
And
yeah, no problem.
Nature is amazing. I mean, that's why I asked you about the Department of Defense, because everything that nature produces, they want to know about. I'm surprised that all the Russian nerve gas, where the poisonings that they're doing, they're probably using frog derivatives for.
So there is a poison frog toxin that was tried out as a drug actually for a while, but it was too difficult to control. It was just as a painkiller.
Oh, the painkiller that kills you. Okay.
Well, hey, listen. Did you think during the plague that they thought that botulism was going to be used for cosmetics? Right. So what do they call that? Off shelf or off list or something like that. There's
Viagra was initially a heart medication, and
then
they found out it did other things better.
For hair, and Propecia. They're all secondary uses.
Yeah,
but
there's
anyway,
quite a
we
few
certainly
medications
appreciate your information, and we definitely want you to hook us up with the hellbender. I like the name of the animal.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll get you a shirt. But yes, thank you so much for your time, Dr. Cori. We will have to do like just a general list amphibian episode with you, since you are our resident amphibian expert as of now. Follow us on Instagram, Just Animals Pod. If you have any questions for Dr. Cori, let us know. We'll definitely, if she wants to come back, we will definitely love to have her back on the show to just do general amphibian knowledge. And you can also shoot us an email. You can check out Scott True Exact. And thank you as always for listening, Dr. Cori. Again, thank you so much for your time and knowledge.
Dr.
We
Cori.
really appreciate it.
Hope you didn't mind our basic questions.
Nope, no problem.